certain things gonna have to change. Certain things gonna have to be different. Because now you know new stuff.
Almost 3 decades after the death of Pac, new investigations are revealing shocking info that changes everything we thought we knew. The official story of Pac's death, it ain't even half the full story, and now some of the biggest names in rap are knees deep in this mess. Let's get into it. How the West Coast lost its realest one. Tupac Amaru Shakur, born Lassane Parish Crooks on June 16, 1971, wasn't just another rapper. This dude was the definition of West Coast realness. By the mid-90s, my guy had already dropped straight fire like Me Against the World in 95, and that legendary double disc All Eyes on Me in 96. He wasn't just spitting bars, he was acting in joints like Juice and Poetic Justice, becoming everything a real one from the block could aspire to be. But here's where things get complicated, fam. Here's where the story takes that dark turn that would change hip-hop forever. See, Pac wasn't just navigating the music game, he was dead in the middle of what heads now call the East Coast-West Coast beef. And this wasn't no friendly competition no more. This had escalated from who got the hardest beats to something way more grimy. We're talking life and death type energy out here. The roots of this whole situation go back to the late 80s when West Coast cats like NWA started checking New York's dominance over the game. But things really popped off in 91 with dices like Tim Dog's Compton going at Dr. Dre, and then Suge Knight putting together Death Row Records, a label with heavy blood ties that was about to flip the whole industry upside down. Then came Bad Boy Records. In 93, Sean Puff Daddy Combs launched his NYC-based label and put the notorious B.I.G., Christopher Wallace, on the map with street classics on Ready to Die. What started as coast-to-coast competition was now personal beef, and blood was about to spill. The moment everything changed, the real flashpoint, went down on November 30th, 1994, at Quad Recording Studios in Times Square. Picture this. Pac rolls up to the building, not knowing he's walking into a straight-up setup. They hit him 5 times, took 40 bands worth of jewelry off him, and when he stumbles into that lobby, bleeding out and barely holding on, he peeps 2 faces that would haunt him till his last breath: Biggie Smalls and Puff Daddy. Whether they were really down with the lick or just happened to be posted up there, Pac was convinced his day ones had crossed him. In a 1995 Vibe magazine interview, he put everybody on blast: Combs, Biggie, Uptown Records' Andre Harrell, calling them all snakes. A whole friendship got torched. War was declared. After doing a bid, Pac got bailed out by Suge Knight for $1.4 million in October 95, and he linked up with Death Row. The beef went nuclear after that. At the 95 Source Awards, Knight was throwing shade at Combs for jumping in photos. Snoop was clowning the whole East Coast crowd. And then came Hit 'Em Up, Pac's June 96 diss track that violated every rule in the book, bragging about smashing Biggie's wife Faith Evans and putting the whole Bad Boy crew on notice. This wasn't music no more, fam. This was war correspondence straight from the trenches. But there was another layer to this whole situation that would end up being the nail in the coffin. Just 2 months before that night in Vegas, in July 96 out in Lakewood, Cali, a mob Piru Bloods homie named Trevon Trey Lane got ran down at a Foot Locker by some Southside Crips, including a young cat named Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. They snatched something that seemed small, a Death Row chain. But that chain meant everything. Bloods versus Crips, Death Row versus the streets, respect versus disrespect. And this Orlando Anderson cat, he was the nephew of Dwayne Keefe D Davis, a dude who would eventually become the main character in this whole murder mystery. So when September 7th, 1996 pulled up, all these threads, the East Coast, West Coast smoke, the gang tensions, the personal vendettas, the snatched chain, they all linked up in Vegas like a perfect storm, ready to wreak havoc. Pac was in town for the Mike Tyson fight against Bruce Seldon, posted up in a Death Row affiliated suite. He was riding with Suge Knight. He was on top of the world off the success of All Eyes on Me. He had no clue he had less than a week left to breathe. The night kicked off at the MGM Grand Arena, where Tyson demolished Seldon with a TKO in round 1. The fight was over before it really started, but the real violence of that night was just warming up. In the MGM lobby after the fight, Trevon Lane spotted him, Orlando Anderson, the same young cat who had run down on him for that Death Row chain 2 months back. Lane pointed him out to Pac, and Pac, being Pac, didn't hesitate for a second. "You from the South?" he asked, street talk for Southside Crips, and then he swung on Anderson, setting off a 30-second beatdown. Pac, Knight, and the whole crew jumped in. Security broke it up. The cameras caught everything. Later that night, Pac told his girl Kadada Jones about the fade at the Luxor Hotel. He had no idea he had just signed his own death certificate. Around 10:30 p.m., Pac switched up his fit and hopped in Suge Knight's black 1996 BMW 750IL. They were sliding to Club 662, a death row spot named after Mob, members of Bloods. Pac's bodyguard bodyguard, Frank Alexander, wasn't even in the whip with them. He was driving Kidada's ride instead. That decision would prove fatal. Between 11 and 11:05 p.m. on the Vegas Strip, LVMPD Bike Patrol pulled them over for bumping the music too loud and missing front plates. The plates were in the trunk, no ticket. They let them slide. At about 11:10 p.m. at Flamingo Road and Koval Lane near the Maxim Hotel, they pulled up to a red light. Pac was feeling himself. He spotted two shorties in a Cadillac Escalade and couldn't resist hollering, "Aye, come through to 662, he yelled, leaning all the way out the passenger window, completely exposing himself, making himself a target. And then, at 11:15 p.m., a white Cadillac crept up alongside. Later investigations would reveal the whip was hot. From the back passenger side, a shooter let loose 13 to 14 rounds from a .40 caliber Glock 22. 4 slugs hit Pac, chest, pelvis, thigh, hand. Suge Knight caught a graze to the dome from fragments. The driver of the white caddy, Terrence Bubble Up Brown, allegedly dipped from the scene. Nobody in the BMW returned fire. Pac wasn't even strapped. Knight mashed the gas, speeding to Harmon Avenue, where the cops stopped them again before rushing Pac to University Medical Center. There was a witness in one of the trailing cars that night, Yaki Gaddafi from the Outlaws. He reportedly saw who pulled the trigger, but before he could ever speak on it to the law, he got killed in a separate shooting on November 10th, 1996. The only people who knew the whole truth were getting dropped, one by one. Pac pulled up to the emergency room in critical condition. Doctors had to remove a bullet that went through his right lung. For 6 brutal days, he laid there in a coma while his mom's, Afeni Shakur, stayed by his side. On September 13th, 1996, at 4:03 p.m., Tupac Amaru Shakur took his last breath from respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. He was only 25 years young. Official cause, multiple gunshot wounds. Afeni made the heartbreaking call to pull the plug when the internal bleeding wouldn't stop. They held a private funeral. His body got cremated, and in true West Coast fashion, Outlaws members smoked his ashes in a blunt as tribute. The rap game was in mourning, but the violence, that was just the beginning of a new chapter. Feel me? The 27-year cold case and the OG who kept running his mouth. For damn near 3 decades, the murder of Tupac Shakur stayed one of the most infamous unsolved cases in American history. The Vegas PD's investigation was straight trash. They fumbled critical leads, ignored the MGM surveillance tape, didn't pursue the white Cadillac tip. Year after year went by with no arrests, no accountability, no justice for Pac or his family. And in that vacuum where the law failed, conspiracy theories grew like wildfire in the streets. Let me break down the competing narratives that have had researchers, journalists, and Pac fans going back and forth for almost 30 years. The first, and what most heads consider the leading theory, is straight gang retaliation. Southside Compton Crips getting payback for the MGM beatdown of Orlando Anderson, with Dwayne "Keefe D. Davis allegedly calling the shots from inside the white caddy. This theory got some juice from 2002. LA Times reports that hinted at connections between the Crips and Bad Boy Records, cats like Lil Cease, who might have been funneling East Coast bread for the hit. The second major theory points the finger straight at Biggie and Puff. Remember, Pac had accused them of orchestrating the '94 Quad Studio setup. This theory says Combs put up $1 million bag for Pac and Suji after they violated him at the '95 Source Awards. LAPD detective Greg Cotting, who ran a federal task force in the 2000s, allegedly found evidence that Combs paid the Crips through the middleman Terrence Brown. Faith Evans' alleged fling with Pac added fuel to the motive. Combs has been denying these allegations forever, and no charges have ever been brought. The third theory is probably the most grimy of all. Suge Knight set up the whole thing. Knight, worried about Pac bouncing from death row when money was getting funny, allegedly ordered the hit, or was himself the intended target in some kind of label takeover. His suspicious silence after the shooting, and his 2017 claims that the bullets were meant for him, have kept the speculation going. Detective Kading even connected Knight to Biggie's later murder through hitman Poochie Faust and a 25 rack bounty. And then there's the theory that just won't die. The Pac is still alive conspiracy. Believers swear Pac staged his own death to escape all the ops, resurfacing under his Machiavelli persona, a nod to Niccolo Machiavelli, the philosopher who supposedly advocated faking death to shake your enemies. Alleged sightings in Cuba, numerological clues in his album The Don Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory, and all the mystery around his cremation have kept this theory breathing in memes and docs. Autopsies and family statements debunked it, but it lives on as proof of how bad fans want their king to still be out there somewhere. Lastly, there's the government FBI conspiracy conspiracy angle. Pac's mom's Afeni was a Black Panther, which made him a potential COINTELPRO target. Declassified FBI docs from 2011 showed the Jewish Defense League was extorting Pac for protection money. LAPD corruption, off-duty officers working as death row security, plays into broader distrust of the system. Evidence is thin here, but the theory hits different for folks who've seen how the government historically treats Black activists. But here's where the whole story takes its wildest turn. Enter Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. Born June 14, 1963 in Compton, California, Davis came up as a key player in Southside Compton Crips circles during the 80s-90s crack era. As a mid-level hustler and gang enforcer, he built a rep for street violence, doing a bid from 85 to 89 for drug trafficking. By the mid-90s, he was running a loose crew of Crips deep in the Bloods Crips wars, and his nephew, Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, the young homie Pac, stomped out in the MGM lobby. Davis positioned himself as Anderson's protector, later bragging in interviews about the Crips' get-back mentality. Them jumping on my nephew gave us the ultimate green light to do something. Tupac chose the wrong game to play. Now here's where Keefe D made a fatal error. Fatal for his own freedom, that is. The homie could not stop running his mouth. In the 2000s, facing Fed drug charges, Davis flipped to informant status, cooperating with LAPD and FBI on gang cases, including Biggie's '97 murder, to catch some breaks on his sentences. This proffer era from 2008 to 2010 gave him immunity deals he now claims protect him from Pac-related scrutiny. But then came the book deal. In 2019, Davis dropped Compton Street Legend. In 2018, he showed up on BET's docuseries Death Row Chronicles. And in interview, podcasts, YouTube shows, anybody with a camera, he detailed riding in the white Cadillac during the September 7th, 1996 drive-by. He admitted to supplying the .40 caliber Glock that DeAndre Big Dre Smith used. He framed it as gang payback for the MGM fade. He denied pulling the trigger himself, but admitted he was the shot caller. In one of his most infamous sit-downs, Davis described the moment in chilling detail.
No, we coming up, what's the name? What's that, Flamingo? Yeah, I think that's Flamingo. We was coming up Flamingo and got to the light. He was gonna go drink and smoke some weed, and he happened to be hanging out the window. He was hanging out the window like he was in a parade.
Tupac.
Yeah, he was.
When pressed on whether he saw Pac reach for a strap,
It looked like he was reaching, yeah. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you actually see a gun?
No, once he got to reaching, I got to ducking.
and on the shooting itself,
I seen a bullet going straight ahead. I thought he was dead.
So Orlando shot across Dre?
He leaned over on the window, he rolled down the window, popped.
Who was it?
They would drove on my side, I was popped. You know what I'm saying? But they was on the other side.
these weren't forced confessions from the interrogation room. These weren't immunity negotiations behind closed doors. This was a whole OG bragging about his role in one of the most notorious murders in hip-hop history. On camera, for the bag, to anybody who would listen. On July 18th, 2023, LVMPD finally ran up in Davis's Henderson crib, grabbing electronics, .40 caliber ammo, flicks of Anderson and Pac, and a copy of his own book. On September 29th, 2023, damn near 27 years after the murder, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis got booked and indicted for first-degree murder with gang enhancement. Prosecutors say he greenlit the hit hours after the MGM fade, riding shotgun in the white caddy, while DeAndre Big Dre Smith lit up the BMW. Davis pleaded not guilty, now claiming all his stories were capped for book sales and street cred, but prosecutors ain't buying it. As one official put it, he spoke in nearly every forum imaginable, basically throwing away any protection those immunity deals might have given him. The grand jury transcripts that got unsealed on September 7th, 2025, exactly 29 years after the shooting, dropped some bombs. Crips Blood's connections to Bad Boy and Death Row, the chain snatch that started everything, Diddy's alleged $1 million bounty, which he denies, Pac leaning out the window making himself an easy target, and DeAndre Smith as the actual trigger man. Both Smith and Anderson are gone now. Smith passed in 2004, Anderson in 1998, leaving Davis as the last alleged conspirator still breathing. Meanwhile, Suge Knight's locked up doing 28 years for a 2015 manslaughter case, and he's been making his own wild claims. In a July 2025 People interview, Knight made crazy accusations that Pac's mom's Afeni helped stage his suicide by cop, claims the Shaker family called delusional. When asked why Suji doesn't just come clean about what he knows about the shooting, those in the know have a real sobering answer.
A little closer than that, lad. He was a little closer.
Well, he was in the car
situation.
with Tupac.
with not just by being in the car with the murders, but he was more involved than people think. It was the conversations and all that that led up to that day, or led up to the demise of these two people. My hands ain't clean, should I say. So it was more to it than that. See, one thing people don't understand, Suge know a whole lot, knows everything.
Right.
But Suge can't talk, because if Suge talk, Suge implicate himself in 99.9% of the bullshit that was going on. So Suge could never talk.
The trial that keeps getting pushed and the theories that won't go away. As we creep up on the 30th anniversary of Pac's death, the case has taken yet another wild turn, or really a series of frustrating delays that got the Shakur family and fans worldwide wondering if justice is ever really coming. Davis initially caught a $750,000 bail with house arrest in June 2024, but that got snatched back on June 27, 2024, over some suspect bred allegedly from a movie deal. Davis blamed Vlad TV lies and producer Snake moves. He's still sitting in Clark County Detention Center. The trial has been delayed not once, not twice, but 3 times now, from November 2024 to February 9th, 2026 for new evidence review, and then pushed again to August 10th, 2026 because the defense needed more time for discovery. DA Steve Wolfson didn't even object. Davis, now 62 years old, is waiting on his fate with new lawyers Robert Draxovich and Michael Pandulo, who've been saying he didn't do it. His legal team filed a suppression motion on November 4th, 2025, trying to throw out the proffer tapes, arguing outrageous government conduct. They claim his 2008 LAPD, 2009 FBI, and 2010 Compton PD agreements gave him use immunity that should protect him from getting cooked by his own words. Judge Carly Kearney denied the dismissal motion in July 2025, so Davis filed an appeal with the Nevada Supreme Court on July 29, 2025, still pending as of November 2025. There was even separate drama. Davis caught a conviction for some unrelated jail battery in April 2025, got sentenced to 16 to 40 months, but got credit for time served. His son testified about alleged juror misconduct trying to get it thrown out, denied November 2025. During a July 23, 2024 court appearance, Davis went off, "They're trashing my family," over some bail evidence. But while Davis sits waiting on trial, theories about who really bodied Pac keep evolving and multiplying. Some folks have been pointing fingers at an unlikely suspect, Reggie Wright Jr., Death Row's former head of security. In recent interviews after Davis's arrest, Keefe D himself suggested that if he goes down for Pac, Reggie and them need to be going to jail for Biggie. Wright has addressed these accusations straight up.
It's unfortunate that that's the new theme, man. This really is. I thought we had got away from that, especially once Keefe D had got arrested, even though he had been making his promo tour, talking about it on your channel and in his book and BET Chronicles and other people platforms. And then he gets there, and now he goes to jail, and got to pass the buck. You remember that show, The Practice? They used to call The Practice, and they used to have the Plan B, and they say, hey, when your suspect is done, we got to throw it on the best witness and accuse him.
Meanwhile, some observers believe both bodies, Pac's and Biggie's, were inside jobs orchestrated by Death Row affiliates, not East Coast ops at all.
If you ask me, that was all in-house.
So you believe Tupac and Biggie murder was in-house?
I believe Biggie and Tupac was in-house. All had something to do with Death Row people.
The theory continues with a damning observation about security that night.
There's no way, bro. There's no way that I'ma have a convoy of cars and somebody's gonna ride up to my principal and kill them. There's no way, unless it's in-house. Somebody we know, somebody we cool with, some familiar face that we let go past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. different cars.
Let me run through the other cats who've been implicated in the murder besides Davis. Orlando Baby Lane. Anderson, Davis's nephew and Southside Crips enforcer, was the one Pac stomped out in the MGM lobby. Witnesses placed him in the back seat of the caddy. A Crips affiliate testified in the 2025 transcripts that Anderson caught the Glock from Davis, but passed it to Smith because his angle was off. Anderson denied everything before he got killed, even suing Pac's estate for assault in '97, while Affini countersued. He got dropped on May 29, 1998, in a Compton gang shootout at 21 years old, taking his secrets to the grave. Terrence Bubble Up Brown allegedly drove the white caddy. He had ties to both the Southside Crips and Bad Boy. He was security for junior MAFIA Detective Kading's 2009 proffer, with Davis identified Brown as receiving Combs's offer through middlemen. Brown reportedly was bragging in Compton about handling business for East Coast Bread. He died in a 2015 car crash. DeAndre Big Dre Smith has been named the actual shooter in 2025 grand jury docs, a 6'6", 400-pound Crips heavy who aired out the BMW with the Glock Davis supplied. Testimony says Anderson's position blocked his shot, so he got the handoff. Smith matched witness sketches. He got killed in March 2004 in a drive-by, possibly Mob Peru payback. As for Sean Diddy Combs, he got named 47 times in the September 2025 transcripts. Davis's proffers accused him of putting up the $1 million bag. A 2024 Cassie Ventura lawsuit claimed Combs was bragging about the hit. A 2003 Kirk Burroughs lawsuit made similar claims before getting thrown out. Combs has been denying everything, calling it pure fiction. LVMPD confirms he's not a suspect, though the Shakur family hired private investigator Alex Alonso in October 2024 to look into his potential involvement. And then there's the conspiracy theory that absolutely refuses to die. The belief that Pac faked his death and is alive somewhere, living low-key under aliases like Machiavelli. Believers point to elaborate clues. The album title, The Don Illuminati. The 7-Day Theory references Machiavelli's death-feigning tactics. Pac's birthday, June 16th, 1 + 6, 7. His age, 25, 2 + 5, 7. His death time, 4:03 p.m. 4 + 0 = 3, 7. The album cover shows Pac crucified like Jesus. Resurrection vibes. Liner notes say, Exit Tupac, enter Machiavelli. Over 100 Pac sightings have been reported since '96. Cuba, New Mexico, Barbados, Europe, Malaysia. In 2025, ex-users claimed Pac tweeted from Albania through a burner account. A July 2025 viral video showed a hooded figure in Poland, sparking MJ Pac swap memes. All debunked, but they keep going because they offer something the truth can't. Hope. Suge Knight himself has been adding fuel to the fire with cryptic 2018 prison calls. Pac knew too much. He's safe. And his 2025 People interview claiming Affini helped stage it for insurance just made things messier. But why do these theories stay alive almost 30 years later? As one analysis put it, they're coping mechanisms for senseless violence, mirroring JFK or moon landing conspiracies. Distrust in institutions, especially given LAPD's corruption and death row ties, makes them hit harder. And there's something deeply human about refusing to accept that a voice as powerful as Pac's could be silenced by something as street level as gang retaliation. In an era of deep fakes, true crime pods, and cold cases getting blown open, the alive narrative offers comfort. A Pac who escaped the tragedy, maybe somewhere writing manifestos and hiding. It critiques the system. If the powers that be orchestrate deaths, why not a counter move? Yet Affini Shakur's 2016 deathbed words, "My son is gone," and estate filings showing no hidden assets should have put it to rest. As biographer Stacey Robinson noted in The New Yorker, it's grief's poetry. Pac's immortality lives in his bars, not on some island. With over 75 million records moved, the theory keeps his voice echoing forever, whether he faked it or not. As Davis's trial creeps toward August 2026, Pac's family is demanding answers. His sister, Sekiwa Shakur, stated, 27 years waiting for justice. The case now rests on Davis's alleged shot caller role, with potential connections to the bigger East Coast-West Coast beef. Prosecutors got his own words from proffers, books, podcasts, and documentaries. The defense gonna argue he made it all up for clout and a check. The real truth? It probably died with Orlando Anderson in '98, with Big Dre Smith in '04, with Bubble Up Brown in 2015. The only one left standing is the OG who couldn't keep his mouth shut. Whether his word's gonna convict him, or whether he walks free as an unreliable narrator spinning tales for royalties, that's still up in the air. What we know for a fact is this: Tupac Amaru Shakur got shot on September 7, 1996, and died 6 days later. He was only 25. He left behind a catalog of music that's influenced every generation since. He left behind a mother who mourned him until her own passing. He left behind mysteries we might never fully figure out, and somewhere, in courtrooms and podcasts and comment sections and X3 threads, people are still going back and forth about what really went down that night in Vegas. Maybe that's the most fitting legacy of all. Pac lived loud, he died young, and almost 30 years later, we still can't stop talking about him. Real ones never die, they say. And in that sense, maybe Tupac really is immortal. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.